So I'm going to geek out a little bit, okay? So Dr. Yuri Hassan is a neuroscience researcher at Princeton who studies how stories affect our brains, okay? And research has found consistently that the most effective way to get someone on the same page as you is to tell them a compelling story. You look at people used to think like, what's the best way to open up a presentation? Tell a joke. Not true. They've found in terms of getting people to agree or to reach a consensus with the point that you're trying to make is to tell them a compelling and engaging story. The human brain is hardwired to remember stories. History was passed down from generation to generation through stories, through experiences, and those were passed on. Think about your favorite books, movies, commercials. If you have a friend that's just always got a good story to tell, those people are magnets. People love to be around them because they're entertaining, right? So the components of what makes a good story, you can tell a story, but there's key components that go into it, right? And this is part of the process that we go through when we're trying to help applicants figure out what to talk about. You need a hero or someone to root for. There's a conflict or some type of tension that has to be overcome. Character development, so we need to see some growth or some strengths that are demonstrated or developed, and then a meaningful resolution, right? This doesn't mean like, and they all lived happily ever after. Some of the best movies I've seen, they actually make me kind of sad, but they took me somewhere and there was a resolution that had some impact or some meaning, right? For this essay, we're going to mostly stick with like hopeful, optimistic, happy things because we want to keep it pretty light. But meaningful resolutions, okay? Those are the key ingredients for effective stories. A hero, a conflict, development, and a resolution. So even if you're not religious, right? Jesus Christ and other transformative teachers taught using stories or parables because they stick with people. They're easy to remember. They are effective ways to teach and to get people on your side and to get them to learn things. So that is the neuroscience behind it. The main neurotransmitters that we want going off in the mind of your reader: dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin.
Yes, raw materials that make up a great PTCAS essay. So like we've already been kind of drilling into your guys' minds, stories. And these stories should showcase your strengths. So like your authenticity, they should be authentic, and have good imagery, and have some emotion in them. You want to be able to show your strengths rather than tell about it. And hook your reader early, like grab them with a story. You don't necessarily need an introduction into this essay. You can start with that story and hook your reader into who you are with your strengths. And then that comes back into that show, don't tell. Don't just say, I'm really good at communication, or I'm a great listener. Show us how you're a great listener. Did you listen to some patients who maybe were frustrated because no one was listening, so you sat down and had a conversation, but you just let them talk, and share that story and how that kind of had you develop and moved you forward in your journey in life or in PT. And it could even be just listening to a grandparent. Like, I know my grandpa loved talking, so I would always just sit and listen. Now that would be a great story to show how good of a listener I am to the PTCAS reviewers. And then be a victor, not a victim. That's just with making sure you are like standing out and making sure you're not sounding too like, this happened to me and that's why I'm here today. Like, of course, if you went through a hardship, share that story. But like Sean was saying, where's that resolution? Where's that like lighting ending? So we want to keep it light. That doesn't mean you can't talk about like a grandparent who passed away and what did that teach you or show you, or what strength did you learn from that? That's fine. That's a fine example to do. However, you don't want to say a grandparent passed and then you just went downhill. You don't want to kind of bring that to attention. You want to, again, show your strengths and show how maybe you overcome that heartbreak, or how did it connect later on in life to make you stronger in PT or in being human. So I see, Joanne, how long should an efficient essay be for PT application? We actually are going to get to that soon. We have like a character count method for you. I believe for PTCAS essays, though, it's 4,500 characters, including spaces. So there's a little snippet for you now, but we will go deeper into that later in the presentation.
You definitely should fill that up. Like, use all the characters they can give you. And real quick, going back to being a victor and not a victim, to kind of echo what Jenna's saying, is this mentality a lot of times that applicants bring of like, if someone feels sorry for me, that will make them want me to go to their school. And to a degree, you can use difficult life experiences to have people get on your side, but you should focus on how you grew and developed during that time, and not just be like, oh, and then this happened to me, and then this happened to me, and now this is happening to me, and I just need to get into PT school because I've had a really hard time. Like, that's just not very motivating, right? Joanna here, let's see what your question is. Also, telling our stories, what if we have many talents and we want to write a little about all of them? How would that work? Okay, so this is a good point. I was going to bring this up kind of with Jenna's story. So if you're going to talk about a grandparent that passed away, right? That's an isolated experience and is fairly common, right? So like, everyone has people in their lives who die. Like, it's just an unfortunate reality. People get old, they pass away. Sometimes they're young, they pass away. You want to focus on stories that allow you to showcase many of your strengths. And when we go through the brainstorming process, Joanna, you're going to get more of an opportunity to say like, okay, first what we need to do is identify what are the strengths I want to talk about. And then we find the stories that give you the most opportunity to expose that about yourself. Okay. All right, Jenna, sorry, go ahead. Keep on cracking.
Oh, no, you're good. I was actually just about to move on to our sample essay. Yeah, sample essay before coaching. So here is something that some people might submit as a beginning of their essay. When I decided to study abroad with semester at sea, I envisioned myself hiking the Great Wall of China, skydiving over the Cape of South Africa, and gazing at the Taj Mahal at sunrise. What I was not prepared for were the unexpected moments I would share with the locals I met in each country, and the fact that several of these moments would completely alter my outlook on the world and my career path. I had always known that I wanted to go into the medical field. Now, this is fine. This is kind of bringing up many stories, though, and kind of generalizing something that happened at each, and which is fine. And it seems more of that like intro vibe. I would suggest honing in on one of those instances, whether it be the skydiving or the Great Wall of China or the Taj Mahal, and then go into where you met one of those locals and how did that moment change you, and what did you learn from that, and what strengths were you able to show within that. So if you submit something like this, like, that's a fine start, but we are going to help you move to something like this. This is an after coaching essay. I gazed out the window of the rickety bus and watched the red dirt road wind through miles of lush green vegetation. My classmates and I were headed to an orphanage about an hour away from the capital of Ghana in West Africa. I walked into the lobby of the orphanage and opened my backpack to distribute toys and school supplies to dozens of beaming children. I couldn't stop smiling as we played with the kids, running back and forth, playing basketball, and watching them play with the yo-yo for the first time. So this shows a strength of compassion. This goes deeper into one specific event, but I can already spot a few strengths in there. So that's kind of an example of what you want to do or how you want to start your essays, honing in on one experience, but through that experience, you can distribute many talents, kind of like what Joanna was asking. Choose that one story and then share if you're compassionate, empathetic, you're well-traveler, stuff like that. And yeah, anything you want to add to that, Sean?
Yeah, I think So this was one of my favorite essays several years ago, because this is the same person, first draft and second draft, right? So very much like what Jenna was saying, we said, okay, this is good, this is fine, but as a reader, I'm kind of like, where do I focus in the first one? It's like, we're talking about this, we're talking about this. And while that may seem like you want to include a ton of random details, the human brain responds better when there's a cohesive narrative. There's an arc to the story that we talk about, right? So as we went into this is the opening paragraph right here. Okay. There's no intro. There's no like, well, I really want to be a physical therapist and I love this profession and yada, yada, yada. And then they go into a story. Boom. We don't have time for that. Just cut to the chase, get to a story that's going to hook and engage your reader right off the bat. And they're going to immediately be like, okay, I'm kind of on the edge of my seat here. What's going on? Why am I reading this? So hopefully you guys see the value in that is don't just blast a bunch of content in there. You got to be targeted and find a few specific things that can really help you dig in and start developing your strengths. I also tell applicants a lot of the time, it's not so much like there's one right story, right? There's a lot of different stories that you could use. There are like better stories or stories that give you opportunity to talk about more strengths, but it's not necessarily that you have to get the right story or your entire essay is going to be hosed type of a thing. You don't need to look at it from that perspective. Find the right story, choose the right story, and make it the right story. And from there, then you just work on developing your strengths. And even if you have a bunch of different stories, most of you are probably going to have supplemental essays, and you can use those stories in different essays, right? So it's not like it's all for naught when you go through the brainstorming process. We actually recommend you get it all out, and then you rank which ones are going to be the best fit depending on what is required for that essay. And then you can keep that other material for use on later essays, okay?